2XW had been going on for a long time now. And we had been on and off because we'd wrestle for 4 or 5 months, 6 months, whatever, and then something would happen and we'd have to stop wrestling and there'd be no shows for X amount of months, and then suddenly we'd pick it back up, and it'd been going that way for a while. And we were all a pretty tight-knit group, but I had gotten in trouble for things that had happened when, of course, we're a bunch of rowdy teenagers at this point, just coming out of high school, and stuff happens. And, of course, the wrestling, it's a lot of potential for injury, so there had been some stress on me, to say the least, putting these shows on in my parents' backyard for 5-6 years, however long we did it, 5 years I think it was, because this is in 2005 now. And I discovered the website Tripod allowed you to create your own website for free. We all had discovered this, and Kevin had made an RJ the Canadian page, and I made a JTR Experience page. Well, naturally, we made a 2XW page as well. Well, on the 2XW page, you have a guest book, and you can create a guest book, and people will write their name and then write a comment. Well, I turned it into kind of the gossip book. So after a couple of shows, this guy shows up commenting on our website under the name of Stephen Parr. And I'm talking about not just commenting, I'm talking about critiquing and just stripping us down to flesh and bones. And it rubbed a lot of our roster the wrong way, particularly the newest members of the roster who had not really found themselves as wrestlers and had not really started to get their ring legs up. We all started wondering, is this Stephen Parr someone who knows one of us who is getting this story, or is this Stephen Parr one of us under an assumed name? And it kind of had everyone on the roster kind of looking over their shoulder, and the trust started to fall apart. And now, I'm not necessarily going to blame Stephen Parr for what would eventually happen to 2XW, but I do think it was a major part of it. Me, on the other hand, I wasn't super worried about it. We did a one show where, at this point, I was doing the Extreme Experience, and it was like a wrestling talk show like Piper's Pit or the Highlight Reel with Chris Jericho. And I did one at one of our big events, pay-per-views, and had two guys on and took a fair amount of time. Well, when the review came out from Stephen Parr, the word was JTR took too much time, doing the Extreme Experience time that could have been used for wrestling. And my response was, oh, you didn't like how long the show was? All right. So for the very next show, I did like the JTR Extreme Experience Epic Spectacular, and took even longer on purpose, with multiple guests coming on and waste all this time. And I can't remember what Parr's response was, and it was probably because I wasn't too concerned with it, because I was just out there to have fun. So anyway, our big end of the year event now was called eXtreMania, and we were approaching eXtreMania 3. And so I laid out a challenge for Stephen Parr on the 2XW website and said, hey, I want you to come on the Extreme Experience and reveal yourself at XM3. If you're one of us or if you're someone else. I was hoping it was someone else, because that would have made for a really good show, I thought. But so the day comes and everyone's there and no one new is there. And I said, you know what? Maybe this guy will reveal himself. So we went through our first couple of matches, and then it came time for the Extreme Experience, and I was like mid-show for eXtreMania 3. And so I came out there, and I had Jerry as Chris Beck, the bounty hunter, because JTR's security at the time, and said, all right, who wants to come up here and acknowledge that they are Stephen Parr? And we paused and we looked around. Well, here comes Jeremy's dad walking up, and he says, I have something to admit. And I'm thinking, it was Jeremy's dad the whole time. And he says, I am not Stephen Parr. He says, but I know who is. And he accused David. Well, David comes up, nope, I'm not Stephen Parr. It's definitely not me. So after XM3, David and Kevin were like the architects of 2XW, and they would put up our sets. They got really upset after XM3 because they had to take everything down by themselves. You know, a bunch of people had come and done the show and then had to run off and leave. I had to play host, so it was kind of my idea to help everyone out. And to be fair, I didn't think about David and Kevin taking everything down, so that was on me. But the two of them got really upset. David the most upset at me, and there was a huge argument. And this kind of brought my feelings towards 2XW to a boiling point. Because I was already starting to get so stressed and tired with putting these shows on, and then David and Kevin came yelling at me about them having to take down the set all by themselves. And while I admit now, I can't remember if I admitted right away then. I think I eventually admitted that I was in the wrong for doing that and apologized, but it was killing me, just killing me. Well, my friend Felipe had come back into the picture shortly after XM3 and reprised his role as El Toro, and he and I started to rekindle our friendship. And I admitted to him one day that I was just starting to get so tired of running 2XW. I had the JTR experience going now, but I was just getting so tired of running. And he was the first person that told me, don't do it anymore. Because I had expressed this to people before, and the general response was, well, I can do more to help, or hey, we can host it over at my place, and blah, 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 and, you know, just hang on for a little while longer. Felipe was the first one that told me, hey, if you're not happy with it, don't do it anymore. So then I revealed to him another plan that I had been dreaming about, and that was this big dramatic thing where I said, hey, in the middle of a show without anyone else knowing, hey, I'm tired of this. 2XW is dying and setting the ring on fire. We hosted our last show, and I think Felipe and Summer were the only two that knew what was going to happen. Kevin and David, I think, found out halfway through the show. And during one of the matches, David actually set our hardcore championship belt on fire, which pissed off Justin Benante Savage. The controversy continued for that show because the main event was meant to be me and El Toro, JTR and El Toro, L Experience, versus the current tag team champions, Jason Borden and Stingray, who are members of KI. Well, a couple of shows ago, I had grabbed the belts, because the belts were actually mine, but during the course of 2XW, I'd let different people would hold them. El Toro and I had taken a picture holding the belts, and I had posted it on the JTR Experience website. Well, they had seen it and said, why would you, what's the point of doing that? I mean, we're the champions. Why are you posting pictures of you guys with the belts? I didn't think it was a big deal, but it was apparently a big deal to them. So when the final match started, and by the way, L Experience was the final match because at the end of the final match, we were setting the ring on fire. Very few people knew this. They walked out, handed the tag belts to the referee. They looked at each other and fell over. And by this time, I was so fed up, I said, hey, I don't care. So I walked up and put my foot on one of them's chest. The referee counted 3. Felipe and I grabbed the belts, and we went over and set the ring on fire. Now, David, Kevin, myself, Felipe, it was like a weight off of our shoulders, I think. Jerry, Mike, Justin, they were not happy. And some subtle things were said back and forth that day. I do remember Jerry and Justin helping disassemble the ring as it burned. Felipe ended up beating a path out of there because I think a lot of this was almost our Montreal screw job. and he was the Shawn Michaels of it almost, but he booked it out of there. David and Kevin and I stayed and watched the ring burn to the ground, and I think it was just such a weight off of our shoulders. It may have been, I think, a year later in 2006 that I said, "Hey, I know what everything that happened in 2XW was. It was not good for everybody. It rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Let's get together and do a reunion show and kind of bury the hatchet that way." And so everyone came over, and we put the cars in a circle and wrestled on the ground with no ring and did a little reunion show. And I think it kind of helped everybody in that respect. And then Borden and Mike and Jerry started up Elite Wrestling X, EWX, which eventually over the years became EWF, the Elite Wrestling Federation. And then one last time in 2012, I came back and produced eXtreMania 4. And that was the show where I kind of let go of all the feuds and all the controversy and everything that had happened over the course of 2XW, and tried and pretty much it was the final nail in the coffin. It's been said that 2XW went out in a blaze of glory, and that's probably the end to 2XW that everyone remembers as the definitive end to 2XW, but in my mind, it was that moment. Genocide had been beaten by Dave Century, and he walks out into the rain, which is starting to blaze back up, just with his head up to the sky and the rain falling down on him, and just everything, even more than before, falling off of his shoulders. And he says, "It's over," and then walks backstage. And in my mind, that was the real end of 2XW.